Hey guys, David here and welcome to another video. Now, what you've just seen in this little montage that just took a couple of seconds or minutes actually has been over a month of work, and as you can see before me, it is far from being done, but a lot of work has already gotten into it and it's starting to somewhat look like something. What this is my new main computer. It's going to be wall mounted, and the whole thing is like inspired by like SciFi Laboratories, cryogenic chambers. That's why I'm calling it the CryoPC. And I first designed everything in Fusion 360 and then spent about 200 hours 3D printing everything, then continued to sanding, which, although it was just a couple of seconds for you, was forever for me, and I'm not quite done. These outer pieces still need some more sanding. That's why they have not been painted yet. But the rest is more or less sanded. Now, it's far from being perfect, but I hope that with the paint job I can hide a lot of the imperfections and make it part of the design. Now, the way this whole thing is going to work is that this upper frame is removable. It's going to have plexiglass window in here that I still need to bend. And like these are going to go up here for like decorational purposes. And then the bottom part. So what you can see here is like the main computer. It's all going to be contained like that. That's going to be wall mounted. I of course have the motherboard here. It finally arrived. I was waiting for it for a while. It's an MSI Mac X570 Tomahawk. Was basically the only motherboard that was not overly expensive, that met all the features that I wanted. And then right now we have a glorious GT710 in here, which I've had for a while, but seems to be the only graphics card that any retailer locally here is selling at the moment, which is kind of funny because I bought this one like 5 years ago, and still it costs the same, and you cannot buy anything newer. The CPU is a Ryzen 9 3900X. I wanted the 5900X, but nowhere to be found. So I might upgrade to that later at some point. But for now, it's going to be the 3900X. Nice 12 cores, 3.7 gigahertz. Doesn't quite have the same performance per core as the 5th generation, but still should be a nice upgrade over my 5820K, which with its 6 cores and really old architecture is starting to show its age. You can see that quite a few components are still missing, and that's because they are still in the computer that I'm using every day. So the memory is just going to be 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance, the same sticks that I've been using for years now. And power supply is some model from Be Quiet, I can't even remember exactly, but it's also still used. And of course the GT710 will be replaced with my 1070 Ti actually. Want to upgrade that as well at some point to the 3000 series, but well, it's going to be a while until any of that is in stock. That's why I'm also not water cooling the GPU at the moment, just the CPU. There's no point in buying a water block now for a graphics card that I plan on upgrading soon anyhow. So I'll add that into the loop later on once I actually upgrade. And speaking of water cooling loop, just have the reservoir here at the moment since I'm reusing the pump. And you might think, well, where's the radiator going to go? There is no room in here, which is why there is entire separate assembly that will be mounted next to it, connected with soft tubing and a bunch of other hoses to kind of complete the SciFi cryogenic aesthetic. And that'll house the 360 radiator, which is the same one that I'm using currently. That should be plenty to cool this chip. Once I add the GPU to the loop as well, I will have to build a second one of these modules to keep that cool as well, but that shouldn't be too big of a problem and can easily be added into the loop later. And because it is my main workstation, it also does need quite a bit of storage. And while I am, of course, upgraded to PCIe 4.0 and the 2 SSD for like the boot drive and my editing scratch drives, I still need quite a few terabytes of mass storage, which is why there's this big hard drive module here that I designed. I'm gonna screw the hard drives in here up to 4 with some like vibration dampeners, and then this whole module can actually be taken out, in theory at least. I'm gonna see where it's stuck, might be because I just installed the fan. So I can easily take that out, install the hard drives, and then slide it in and screw it into place. This should house plenty of storage for me and still look somewhat decent. Now, with all the hardware test pitted, I can make some minor adjustments to the frame itself and start finally assembling all the other things. And of course, there will be a lot more painting involved. This kind of dark gray color is just the base coat. I'll do a whole bunch of detail painting and weathering to make this look really epic. But one thing that I have to adjust is that the distance from the motherboard to the back panel with all the cutouts is a bit too large at the moment. I just need to enlarge some holes so I can move this whole panel closer. It is designed so I can adjust these and they have some movement that they can do while still fitting underneath the big hood. I also went ahead and shortened the motherboard standoffs a bit, since I only had 12mm ones, which is quite long and more than it's necessary. But I must have cut off a little bit too much because the motherboard now is sitting about a millimeter too low. So I'll probably add some washers, but I think I'll add them underneath the motherboard tray instead of the motherboard itself. As there is not a lot of room here. I had to use a bit of a thicker board than I initially intended, just because that's what I had on hand. But I still want to keep as much room behind the motherboard tray as possible to hopefully hide some of the cable mess, as everything else will be in full view. The power supply as well is in full view. So might still end up making fully custom cables, but I'm hoping that I can get away with the sleeved extensions that I have, which should be a lot less work, but that means that I need to hide a bunch of cables behind the motherboard tray, so I need as much space there as possible. So I think all that's left to do is cue another montage. Alrighty guys, since the last time that I spoke to you, already 2 weeks have passed again. This project is turning into quite the endeavor, and although this test assembly here looks like it's almost complete, I'm actually nowhere. But before I talk about all the plans and how everything has changed, let me quickly go over what I've done that you've just kind of seen in the montage in a couple quick shots, but maybe not quite gotten. So over here on this side I have the radiator assembly, and this part is actually very close to being done. It's the only part that looks as close to being done as it actually is. All that's remaining is to give it the final coat of paint and do all the weathering and everything on it. But it is functional. I tried it. You can see some water droplets in the tubing here. So the tubing is actually hooked up to the radiator. I leak tested it quickly and kind of flushed out the radiator from all the dirt of the old coolant that was in there. And the fans also all work and light up in red. That's, I think, what I'm going to have it to. They are RGB, but the only way you can change the RGB is with a button on the side, and you can just kind of cycle through like 10 colors or something like that. But I cannot actually access that button anymore. So if I wanted to change it, I would have to like take it partially apart again. So it's not going to be something I change a lot. But I think red is going to be the color I'm going to go with anyhow, to kind of have like a emanating glow of like almost like heater something in there, which is kind of the opposite of what it's actually doing, but I think it'll look really cool. And then I'm just gonna run the tubing, and you might see that it looks a little different than I've kind of had it before, and that is because I'm actually making some huge changes. In all the previous shots you've seen this little reservoir in here, and I was gonna mount the pump to it and have that in the middle, but well, it has been brought to my attention by some very cool folks on the BitTech forum that my initial idea of, yeah, I'll get the air bubbles out of there somehow, I'll figure it out when I get to it, might not be the smartest move, but while I was willing to just kind of work it out when I get to it, the idea to have a separate big reservoir module and kind of expand the multi-module tubing connected idea of this whole project, the more I thought about it, the more I actually liked this idea and liked it more than having the small reservoir in the middle. Now I'm pretty much done designing all the elements for the reservoir and pump combo. It's going to be very similar in style to all the other ones, so that'll be a bunch of 3D printing again, sanding and painting. I thought I was done with that, but apparently not. I'm going to have the pump is going to be down here, being fed by this huge reservoir that I can easily fill up top and like fill to the very top, and very easily, like this reservoir should be enough to basically fill the entire loop. So I'll just fill that up once, turn on the pump, it'll fill the entire loop, and I can just top it off and I'll be done with it. And bleeding is going to be very easy. And then on the bottom is going to be the pump with this tubing coming out of it and going into the bottom here. From here it's going to be connected with just a single 90-degree bend into the CPU block, then out of the CPU block into this middle section here. And this is where the original reservoir and pump was going to go. So now there's a huge space here. And at first I was kind of bummed. I wish I had thought of the reservoir outside earlier, then I could just make the whole thing smaller. But actually, I think I'm going to make this center section here like basically a centerpiece. Makes sense since it's in the center. But one thing I'll have to kind of add some more water cooling elements into here is I'm going to make a distribution block here, which is going to give me a great excuse to finally use the CNC for something. And then also on the right of it, I'm going to have a little LCD screen that is going to give me some stats of maybe the temperatures of the system and stuff like that. And I think if I enclose all of that in a really cool looking 3D print, then I'll have a very stunning centerpiece that actually makes it look even better. I'm also gonna kind of incorporate some more cable management into that, as just gonna trying to put in the cable extensions that I have in here. Made me realize that there is no way I'm gonna be able to hide all of the cables behind the motherboard tray. There's just not nearly enough room. So I might cut off the front part of the motherboard tray and just replace that by a 3D printed structure and add a bunch of room in there where I can hide the cables. And also maybe partially cover the hard drives so that you can see all of those cables, and maybe just have some like kind of almost mesh so that there's still airflow going through it, but it looks a bit more closed off. And then from that point, the tubing is just going to run out to the top, to this outlet here, from where it's going to go through the reservoir, through the radiator, back into the top of the reservoir. So I think this is going to be a really nice loop order, and with the centerpiece hopefully look really cool. But that also means that this project is going to take a lot longer. I was hoping to be done in like a week or two, which if I had not made any of these changes, I think I actually could have pulled off. But now I'm sure this project is at least going to take another month, if not more, especially considering that I still have not designed any of the center sections, and figuring out how all the milling stuff works is going to probably take a couple of attempts as well. So this is actually where I'm going to end part 1, and then I'll probably make a separate video about making this distribution block, since that's going to be mainly CNC work, and then there will be a third video that is the conclusion when this project is all done, and you can see how it looks in the end. So with that said, make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss the next few parts. I have a feeling this project is going to be very epic, and I can't wait to see it completed, as my 3D model only kind of shows me what I can see now here, and all of the weathered painting that I'm going to do is also not visible in the 3D model, so it'll look even more epic than the 3D model does, which already is very epic. And before I overuse the word epic even more, I'm going to thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.